ever since PT left a unique impression on gamers, walking simulators with a psychological horror flair have taken over. From one of the scariest games that I've ever played, Visage, to other titles like the Blair Witch and Supernormal, nowadays we have more first-person psychological horror games than we can even keep count of. And earlier this month we got yet another one, this time taking place primarily within a circus. I give you Reveil. So with so many entries in a very inflated genre of horror games, does Reveil do enough to stand out among a vast sea of competition? Well, on this episode of Nerd Space Games, I'm going to dive down into Reveil as I give you guys my honest thoughts on this game. Let's get it. Reveil is a psychological thriller that follows Walter, an employee at the Nelson Bros Circus who lives and works with his family at the circus. The story begins as Walter wakes up to both his wife and daughter missing, and what follows is a string of events that leads Walter through his past at the circus as he unravels the mystery behind these visions.
What is that supposed to mean? This isn't true, I think.
Reveil is a first-person psychological horror game that primarily uses the walking simulator mechanic seen in games like PT and Visage. However, straight off the bat, I think it's important to manage your expectations with this game as it definitely won't come off as scary as either of those games. Hell, I would argue that this game is less scary and more suspenseful if anything. With that being said, that doesn't mean that Reveil is a bad game for this genre. In fact, I think it's one of the better and more unique games of psychological horror walking simulators. As I said earlier, Reveil primarily takes place in a circus, but also plays with the idea of visions and nightmares to help create some of the best atmospheric horror that I've seen in first-person horror games. For example, the first massive section that you'll explore is the funhouse. In my opinion, this area is probably my favorite section of the entire game. From trying to find your way through a mirror maze to walking down a hallway of figurines that appear and disappear with each flicker of the light, the funhouse is both visually impressive and unnerving at the same time.
Tori, please stop running away.
The game continues to explore this nightmare-like reality that creates twists and turns around each corner, while also playing with some insane distortions of reality as you explore each section. Something else that helps Reveil stand out a little more are the puzzles. While most walking simulators primarily focus on exploration and experiencing the atmosphere of the game, Reveil has its fair share of puzzles. While most of these puzzles are kind of on the nose, especially early on in the game, there are a few that stand out as creative and unique. One of my favorite puzzles is a mannequin puzzle where you'll have to decrypt a secret message that'll give you a code to unlock a nearby chest in the room. Another puzzle that stood out to me was a cube puzzle, which kind of reminds me of an escape room in a box. Unfortunately, while there are plenty of puzzles in Reveil, most of them are fairly simple to solve, and at best, they feel like time wasters. Which kind of sucks because the creative puzzles that I did come across every now and then were some of my favorite moments in the game. In fact, I wish we got more of them over a different challenge that Reveil brought to the table: stealth sequences. In the game, you'll come across a creepy woman as she slowly moves around the area searching for you. But to be completely honest, these moments were some of my least favorite moments of the game. I found myself getting through each of these segments without any difficulty, and other than slowing down the pace of the game, I felt like these sections added nothing to the table. Straight up, I would have preferred more puzzles than having to deal with these underwhelming sections of the game. As for the story of the game, I actually really enjoyed it. Sure, the dialogue and voice acting was subpar at best.
This must be a new addition to the funhouse. But why does it seem so familiar?
But Walter's journey that we were on and the mystery element of the game were enough to keep me intrigued and interested in Reveil's story. which is usually pretty hard in these psychological horror games, as sometimes they don't connect with me completely, but this one had me hooked throughout most of the game. Speaking of the story, there are multiple endings for this game as well, although I kinda wish they got more creative with some of the endings. I can't really go into detail about that as it'll spoil the ending of the game, but if you're interested in hearing what I have to say about that, then hit me up in the comments and I'll gladly let you know what I'm thinking there. As far as how long you should expect for your first playthrough of Reveil, I would estimate roughly around 3 to 4 hours. Your mileage will vary with this game depending on how much exploring you do in certain areas of the game, as there are plenty of files to build up the lore. But honestly, even if you explored every nook and cranny, at best it'll take you 4 hours to complete. To be fair though, Reveil is only charging 20 bucks here in the States. And considering that Alone in the Dark was charging 60 bucks for a 6-hour experience, I feel like that's mostly fair. I do wish the story was a little longer though, even if it was only by an extra hour or two. An easy fix to this would have been throwing a few more of those creative puzzles in there that I know the developers are capable of after seeing some of the ones that we did experience in the game. Reveil is not exactly a game that's going to come in and completely reinvent the genre. If you've played any other first-person walking simulator psychological horror game, then chances are that you'll have a similar experience with this game. It's not very terrifying, but it does do a fantastic job at building up the atmosphere of the setting. The Nelson Bros Circus makes for the perfect location for this genre, and some of the set designs and visuals of this game will leave you pretty impressed with the game overall. While it doesn't exactly compare to some of the juggernauts of the genre, like PT or Visage, it does stand out a lot from other entries that are less impressive and exciting to explore. Plus, it brings more creative puzzles than we normally see in games of this genre. So with all of that said, I give Reveil a 7 out of 10. Keep in mind when I do my rankings, I usually compare it to other games of the same genre. Honestly, if you're not a fan of walking simulators with atmospheric horror, then I highly recommend you stay away from this title. Nothing about it is going to make you change your mind about the genre. However, if what you enjoy the most about these games are the atmospheric horror and the psychological take on its story, then I think the game is at least worth a shot. And at $20, I think it's a fair price. Anyway, that's it for today's episode of Nerd Space Games. Have you played Reveil, and if so, what do you think of my score? Would you have gone higher or lower for this game? Let me know down below. But as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Games. Take care.